Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really lovely to have you with us for this FSB National webinar on the support that the Department for Work and Pensions can provide small businesses and the self-employed. My name's Ruth Lambert. I'm one of the development managers with the Federation of Small Businesses. I look after Somerset and Wiltshire, and there's people like me across the country. So hopefully, if you're an FSB member, you know who your local person is. If not, I would encourage you to find out, as we're here to support you. I'll shortly be handing over to our guest speakers, Karen Taylor and Ian Gardner from the Department for Work and Pensions, who are we're going to have a bit of a conversation this morning about all the different support you can get if you're either an employer or someone who is self-employed from them. So hopefully you'll be much better informed by the end. I know that I will be. If you have any questions during the session, please can you pop them in the Q&A box. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A, and we will be able to pick those questions up from there, and then I will be able to bring them into the conversation during the session. And if we haven't managed to address them, I'll try and run through them at the end. You'll find that the chat box won't work for this type of format. So if you do have anything, please do put it in the Q&A. If you would like to have the captions on for this session, you can see again at the bottom of the screen, there's a facility for enabling your captions. So please do feel free, and hopefully they will be working okay for you. If not, please do put something in the Q&A for us. Just to let you know that the session is also being recorded, so don't worry about taking too many notes. We'll be uploading that to our on-demand page on our website, along with all the links that go with today's session, and then we'll email you after the event once that's live, so that you've got all the resources that you would need to follow up from that. So hopefully you'll find that very useful. Just finally, before we kick off the session, I just wanted to say, if you're not yet an FSB member, we'd love to have you as part of the FSB family. So please do have a look at the FSB website, fsb.org.uk, and you can book a meeting with a membership advisor and find out about all the benefits that can help support your business. So enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Karen and Ian now and just ask them to introduce themselves. So Karen, would you like to tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Thank you very much, Ruth. Yeah, it always feels a little bit like the beginning of Stars in Their Eyes. What's your name? So hi, everybody. Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Karen Taylor, and I'm the Strategic Employer Partnership and Provision Leader for DWP. The area that I cover is Dorset, Wiltshire, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. However, everything that we're going to be sharing with you today is available nationally because it's a national DWP offer, and we're really excited to be able to tell you about all the wonderful things that we can do and how we can help you. Thank you very much, Ruth.
Thank you, Karen. And when you say nationally, do you mean England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales? Or
yes, I do, yes.
Lovely, thank you.
Oh, sorry, not Ireland, I beg your pardon. Northern Ireland has a slightly different service available, but certainly we do still provide benefit support over there as well.
Lovely, thank you. And Ian, would you like to tell everyone about yourself, please?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name's Ian Gardner. I'm I work with Karen, and I'm the Senior Partnership and Provision Leader for Dorset, Wiltshire, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. But as Karen said, what we can represent today is what DWP can offer nationally. And I know there's some links we can share afterwards that people can get some more information from. One thing I would just say about nationally, there are sometimes some slight differences in Scotland and Wales. So we won't highlight those during this call, but they, from the links that we share, they will show the differences.
Lovely. Oh, thank you, Ian. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of a sort of relay between the two of you today, and I think Karen is kicking us off. So Karen, start off, please, if you will, by just telling us a bit about the different services that DWP and also Job Centre Plus offer to people.
Yeah, of course, Ruth. Thank you. I think it's really important. People might hear about DWP or the Department for Work and Pensions. What Ian and I are here to talk about is the work element of the DWP part. The pensions section is dealt with slightly separately, but that's the organisation that we work for. Job Centre Plus is our high street brand as such. and I don't think people necessarily always put the two together. So whilst DWP oversee everything, they're our government department. For the majority of people, their interaction will be via the job centre on the high street. So I think it's really important to actually make that connection. Clearly, the purpose of what we do is we are looking to support people into work. What that means, though, is not just about finding people jobs. It's also about providing them with the support and the advice and the guidance to actually get them to the point where they are in a position to be able to find the right job for them. We're also able to provide support for people who are looking to increase the amount of time, the amount that they work. So whether that's they're looking for a second job, or they're actually looking to just increase their hours in a role that they're doing, or a separate role, we can help with all of that. We are also able to help people identify apprenticeships, both from the employer's perspective, but also from an individual's perspective. And I'm, really keen to remind everybody that apprenticeships aren't just something for young people. There's a plethora of opportunities available for anybody at any age and at any point. In fact, we had a conversation the other day with a group of apprenticeship supporters, and I think the oldest person on an apprenticeship somewhere is about 74 years old. So it just demonstrates the fact that it's something that's available for everybody. In addition to that, we do have a huge amount of support available for people. We've got things called sector-based work academies. You'll probably hear us refer to them as SWAPs because we do tend to go into acronyms. But that's a really great way for an employer to work with us to identify people who might be interested in an opportunity, and we'll provide some upfront training, some on-the-job work experience. All we ask in return is a guaranteed interview, so that the employer can actually see whether or not that person's going to be right for them. In addition to that, we're able to provide people with support from redundancies, whether that's as an individual or a large-scale redundancy. There's so much available for employers, for individuals. Of course, a priority area for us is around supporting people with health and disability type conditions. And we're part and parcel of Access to Work. We administer Access to Work, which is an area that some people may well be aware of. So yeah, loads and loads of information available. I think we're probably only going to scratch the surface of it today, Ruth, but hopefully it will be enough to whet people's appetites to go and start to look and see where they can find more information out.
Thanks, Karen. And you mentioned finding more information out, and the fact that Job Centre Plus is your sort of high street brand. If I was self-employed or an employer and wanted some help from you, is the best thing to just pop into the Job Centre, or what's the best way to access that support?
People can do that, but I would always advocate using gov.uk. It's a fantastic tool. It's available across all parts of the civil service. So even if you want something to do with your driving licence, but definitely with regards to any of the support that we can provide, whether it's from an employer's perspective or somebody who's looking for work, somebody who's looking for training support, gov.uk would be the place that I would recommend that you go to. One of the things we will be doing later on in the end of the call is sharing all of the links with regards to the relevant areas that we've talked about, so it actually gets people straight into where they're looking for the information. So be it apprenticeships, Access to Work, it's all available via gov.uk.
Lovely, thank you very much. So you mentioned about interview support, and a number of our members do employ staff and look to recruit. So can you talk a bit more about how you might help with that? And some of them don't really have the space to interview people themselves. Is that something that you can help with? So maybe you could sort of fill us in a bit more about the free support that's available.
Absolutely. We're able to offer the most amazing support from an employer perspective. Everything that we can do, we can make it a bespoke package. There's no one size fits all with regards to any of our recruitment support that we provide to employers. We have teams of employer advisors across the country who are available either by popping into the job centre, but again, I would probably recommend going via gov.uk, and there's a link there for the employer services line. So there's either an email address or a telephone number where an employer can contact. And what that will do is it will take various details from you so that we can actually pinpoint the right location in the country, so we can get right to the right team at the right time for you. What will happen then is that the employer advisor will talk to you about the type of vacancy that you've got, the type of business that you run, the sector, and the type of people that you're looking to actually employ. We'll help you write the job description, and we'll also help you to put the job online, because we've got Find a Job, which is our government recruitment agency, I guess. Everything can be uploaded there. And then what we can do is we can help to sift the applications. What we'll also have done is we can match our customers against the type of vacancy that you've got, help you with the interviews. We've got, in the majority of our job centres, we've actually got interview space. We've got private offices where employers can come in. Obviously, it needs to be pre-booked and you'll be working alongside the employer advisor, but we can actually provide that space and that opportunity for you. So if you are perhaps, I don't know, operating a business from a work from home perspective, you don't always want to be inviting strangers into your home. And actually we can provide it for you. And I think the best thing about all of this, it's all at no cost. It's no cost to you as the employer at all to recruit via ourselves. All of that we can do for absolutely nothing for you, as in no charge. Obviously, we want to make sure that we deliver for you. But yeah, so everything, really and truthfully, we will take our link from the employer as to what it is that they're looking for, but also we'll be able to help and guide, because this is our bread and butter. It's what we do day in, day out, Ruth, and come up with the ideas if you're not sure.
No, that sounds great. And, even just what qualifications to look for, I think, the qualification landscape has changed so much over the years with T levels and all these new things coming in. It's sort of understanding what you might expect people to have is useful to have your expert advice if you haven't maybe been in that field for a while. You mentioned apprentices, and I would so support you. I mean, I went to an apprenticeship awards recently, and one of the award winners was in her 60s for being an outstanding apprentice. It's a great way to change your career direction, or to just sort of boost your skills, really. But I think the apprenticeship system has changed a lot, and a lot of the responsibility has fallen back on the employer to understand the paperwork, navigate it, know what to do. So I'd love to know a bit more about how you can support people with that, because people I speak to, it can be quite sort of mind-boggling, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, there's some really great information available on gov.uk, but if people use the employer services line and say that they're interested in looking to bring somebody in as an apprentice, then the employer advisor will be able to provide all of that support, look for the different types of opportunities, and just be able to guide you as to what needs to happen. And I think, certainly dependent upon the size of your business, there's some really great support from government to be able to encourage people to take on apprenticeships. So what I would say is, if it's something that you're interested in, get in touch and we can actually take you through that process step by step to see how we can support you and how we look to fill that vacancy that you've got via an apprenticeship. And it's always, I think it's a really great way of recruiting people, because it perhaps gives people the opportunity to gain a qualification as well as the skills, and also potentially secure that permanent job for everybody. But just going back to what you were saying as well, Ruth, around skills and recruiting, I think one of the things I'm really keen on encouraging employers to do is to perhaps not be too specific from a qualification perspective. I think it's far better these days to be actually identifying the type of person that you're looking for, rather than badging it against whether or not that person needs to have a degree or a certain number of GCSEs. Because sometimes it's much easier to find the right person and work with them to provide the support when they're in work, and get them to the point that you might want them to be. What I tend to find is a lot of employers, without realising it, have perhaps put barriers in the way of somebody who would be an ideal candidate, just because of the fact that there have been too many knockout factors. And I would also encourage employers to take time to have a conversation with somebody who's interested in that vacancy, rather than sifting too many people out, because actually the right person with the will may well have been knocked out. And I think a lot of the time at the moment, finding the person with the right will and the right attitude is probably far better than focusing on the skill base, because of the fact that that's, one of the things I find employers are looking for these days is around retention, and actually bringing people in who are going to stay with them, rather than needing to think about recruiting every couple of years, because that's where the time and money from an employer's perspective kicks in, where if you can bring somebody in and keep them in and actually develop them through, you've got not only your internal succession planning, but there's an element of loyalty, and people feel invested in, therefore they will stay with that employer for a much longer period of time.
Yeah, no, thank you, Karen. I think that's a really good point. And we know that apprentices often stay with employers longer as well, because they feel that loyalty from having been, invested in and trained up. I'm going to bring Ian in now as well, because we want to talk a bit about self-employed people who don't necessarily have employees, and the sort of support that DWP can provide for you. So Ian, tell us a bit about that. If I'm running my own business on my own, what sort of things can you help me with?
Yeah, thank you, Ruth. And I noticed someone had put a question in the Q&A, and I put a little answer in there, and I will try and cover that. So you can get support from DWP and through your job centre if you are self-employed. It is a complicated process, and it does very much depend on how much you are earning as to how we treat you as a self-employed person. But you can get universal credit. It will depend on a number of factors. There's certain eligibility conditions for universal credit. For example, the amount of savings you might have, that you're a UK resident, etc., etc. But it also depends on how much you are earning through your self-employment. So what we look at is what is the equivalent of someone earning a minimum wage for 35 hours a week. And that's our sort of base point. If you earn above that amount, and sorry, to give you a feel for that, at the moment, that's about £364 a week, or £1,580 a month, or about £18,960 a year. So if you are earning above that through your self-employment, then your universal credit will be reduced by certain amounts depending on how much you are earning. It's very difficult to give specific examples because it does fluctuate so much. But one of the advantages of universal credit, as opposed to previous benefits, is it does allow month on month for people to earn more money but not have to make a new claim. So they can earn more money, the universal credit will be adjusted accordingly, and then they can earn less money the following month, and their universal credit will increase. So I hope that the question that was in the Q&A was someone who earns a certain amount one month, but because of health, they perhaps don't earn as much the next week. They may well be eligible for universal credit. And if they are, that would be a circumstance where universal credit would top up their earnings in the months when they weren't earning quite so much. So I hope that answers that question. The complication with all of this is, of course, you have to prove that you are, to us, what we call gainfully self-employed. So that is an assessment that we will make, and we have, because of the complexities of this, we have some special self-employed advisors who, if you were self-employed and made a claim to universal credit, you would be dealt with by them specifically, and they will make an assessment about the viability of your business. So is it a viable business, or is it a bit of a hobby that you make some money from? And in those circumstances, we would be talking to you about whether or not it was. But if it is deemed to be a viable business, for the first 12 months of operating, you can get universal credit without being asked to look for other work. So you would have to report every month online your earnings and your income, and then we would adjust your universal credit accordingly. After that 12 months, you would be expected to earn at least that minimum income floor that I described, so the 18,960. And if you weren't, we would be saying to you, well, you've been operating a self-employed business for 12 months now. It's not quite earning the money that you presumably hope and we need you to earn. So therefore, we're going to ask you to look for other work as well. So you can still get universal credit, but the requirements on you in terms of looking for other work may change. So we can provide a lot of support in terms of advice. We can provide support in terms of startup, and if people need some support around what does my business plan look like, how might I market my business, that sort of thing. There are various providers we can probably link you up with that could give you some extra advice on that. But in terms of the financial support, it's very much on a month-to-month basis. But the first 12 months, as long as you're earning, as long as you're proving that you've got a gainful business, then we will support you. The only requirement we have in that first 12 months is you have an appointment with one of our specialist self-employed work coaches once a quarter.
So can I ask, someone's put a question in, is universal credit only for single people? So how does it work if you have a partner who is earning more than that minimum wage? Like, how does that get worked out?
No, yeah, it's a very good question, Ruth. Universal credit is quite different to previous benefits, which were based on individuals. It is a household income. So it's based on a household income. So if you have a partner who is earning, above a certain amount, and without going into the detail, you can check your eligibility online by just doing a quick couple of questions. But if you have a household that is earning above a certain amount, then you won't get universal credit. If you've got a household that's earning less than that, you might do. And then it will depend on what elements of that you can get support for. So can you get support for your housing? Can you get support for your children, etc., etc.? It is a very individual benefit in the sense that it looks at a household as a unit, and it looks at all of those factors and then decides how much people would get and whether they are eligible. But as I say, online, if you go online and look for universal credit, there's a brief eligibility check that will tell you initially if you're eligible. If you are self-employed and you want to go further than that, then you'll probably need to provide more information and arrange an appointment in the job centre, which will all be done online for you. And then you could get a more detailed assessment as to whether your circumstances match the criteria.
Thank you. No, that's great. So what about if you have sort of health problem or disability, either as a self-employed person, or maybe you're thinking of recruiting someone who's got those additional challenges? What sort of help can you provide for that?
Well, I mean, I think there's several things. I mean, one of the points to make, I think, at the moment, which perhaps Karen touched on, was, we are in quite a tight labour market at the moment. There are probably more jobs out there than there are people to fill those jobs, and therefore, as an employer, the challenge is how do I tap into the market of people that are available? And so, one of the things that we are looking at is encouraging people to employ individuals who maybe they had shied away from before because of the risk or the cost, or the fear of not understanding something. How would I support someone like that? And I think that's really important at the moment to consider that, because there are a great number of people out there who may have a health condition or a disability, but have great skills as well and are really good employees, and we can support with some of that. So there's several things that we can talk about. There's the disability confidence scheme, so that's aimed at employers. And what we would ask there is employers sign up to the disability confidence scheme. What it does initially is just gives a commitment to say, look, I'm a disability confident, friendly employer. I'm keen to have people who may have a disability or a health condition, and we will support them. And that will mean things like looking at, is my recruitment process simple and easy for people to access? And we can support and advise on that, and things you can do to make that a simpler process, so that you get you get people applying for you. It can also be about I'll guarantee that I'll interview anyone who has a disability, because they may have skills that I wouldn't pick up through an application process. So there's various commitments initially to do that. It allows you to put the disability confident logo on any adverts you're using. We know that a number of people look for that when they're looking for work. I know that's a disability confident employer. I'm going to apply for that. So there's disability confident, and again, all of the information is on gov.uk, and you can have a look at that in a bit more detail. The second thing that I'd mention, which I think is really a hidden secret, I think it's the worst publicised provision that we have, which is called access to work. Access to work is there to support people who have a health condition or disability either get into work or stay in work. And again, Karen's mentioned earlier, it's a lot cheaper and easier to keep someone in a job than it is to go out and recruit someone new. When you think about the cost of recruitment, the cost of training, etc., etc. So access to work can support people with a range of things. So it might be physical things, so it might be adjustments to some elements of how either the job is done or elements of the surroundings in which they work. The obvious one is chairs for back pain, etc. But it can also provide mental health support. It can also provide job coach support. So if you've got someone who's not used to working in a larger office, let's say, with 2 or 3 people around, and they're not used to that, we can provide some funding for someone to provide them some job coach support for the first few weeks of their job, for example, or some mentoring support, or some translation support. So it's a really well hidden program, but is actually really supportive. This isn't targeted at the employer, it's targeted at the individual, but as an employer it's worth knowing it's out there so that you can encourage people. It can include equipment like specialist laptops, specialist PCs, etc. There is a small cost to the employer, a bit like your car insurance, with an excess. There's a small cost, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's about £300 for anything. But above that, we will fund it and pay for it.
That's great, thank you. And we did have a question from someone when they booked about paying for those additional things, and the fact that you have to pay up front and claim it back. Is that right?
Right. Yes. It's that's how the scheme operates. Yeah. The employer will purchase, or the individual will purchase the item, and then we will refund it. That is the way it operates. I know you did mention that earlier to myself and Karen Ruth, and I think what we said is if that's an issue for people, it's useful feedback for us, and I think we can feed that back into the Access to Work team. I can't promise it would change anything immediately, but again, it's really useful feedback, because if that's a barrier stopping someone employing someone or someone taking a job, then we need to know about it and see if we can improve that system.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. So we've had a question here about mental health and emotional support. She's asking, is there a scheme that provides mental and emotional support to people who are transitioning from, say, being made redundant or long-term illness to get back to work? Her experience with working with over 50s was that they were pressurized to find a job or get interviews and didn't have enough time and headspace to deal with the emotional impact of the changes in their circumstances.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's it's an area I think we probably all realise has increased over recent years, the sort of mental health being a barrier for people either getting into work or staying in work. Access to work can absolutely support with that. They can provide some mental health support workers for people who are in work, or people who are potentially going to lose their job because they're having mental health difficulties. Access to work can fund that as a way of supporting people both into work and back into work. Also, any work coach that we have in the job centre will try and identify where mental health is a barrier to employment, and again encourage people to get support outside of that, because to be honest, our job is to move people into work, but you can't move and help someone into work quickly if there are other bigger barriers in their minds. So it's really important for us to try and, if, let's say it was housing, let's get your housing sorted out and then we'll get you into work. Let's get your mental health in a good place, then we'll help you move into work. But there is support available through Access to Work for exactly that sort of support.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. And do you I know that you provide other support for, if we're tapping into the redundancy issue, and people, obviously the stress around that for people. What can you talk to us a bit about the support you can provide for employers if they're having to make people redundant, and then I suppose for the people that are being made redundant?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have something called the Rapid Response Service. Now, I'm going to break this down into two because I suspect half of this won't be relevant to the audience I'm talking to. So, if a large company makes lots of redundancies, 400, 500 redundancies, we will go in with an offer of support, and that might mean delivering workshops at their premises, etc., etc. Sometimes you might even have a task force working with that company and other people. So that's for larger employers. Where you're smaller employers, which I'm guessing most of the people in this audience are, either individual employers or maybe 2 or 3 people working for you, and you're in a redundancy situation, you don't have to report that to us. If it's over 20, you do, but below that you don't. But those people can get some support from us if they are at threat of losing their job. So I think if you're in that circumstance, it's worth contacting the job centre. So either if you're at risk of your work coming to an end, or if someone who works for you may have to lose, we can give some support. And that support is things like brushing up CVs, for example. You may have worked at the same company for a long time, haven't done a CV for a long time, so brushing up a CV, getting that into a condition for the modern labour market. It might also include providing some new training, so some reskill training, so that, and you don't have to be unemployed to get that, you just have to be at threat of being unemployed. So that might be something we can support there with some short, sharp retraining, refocusing, and that puts you in a better place to find a new job. Plus, if you are lucky enough to get to the point where you do get made redundant, all of the support that we've been talking around that we offer to employers, obviously the other side of that is getting people in the right place to be able to apply for jobs that come up. So they'd get all of the support through the job centre on that front.
Thank you. And if you're a self-employed person running a business on your own, can you access any training through yourselves in that situation?
Not directly through us. We might be able to signpost people to organisations that can provide some support or training that might be free. There are a range of organisations who provide some support, so then we may be able to signpost that, or we may be able to signpost you to where there is some paid for advice, but we don't fund that.
No, that's fine. And that's something that we do at FSB quite regularly, actually, is signpost people to the training that's available, often free of charge around the area. So it's worth speaking to FSB if you're in that situation. I'm just looking at the questions before we go over to Karen for her next bit. Someone has asked, is self-employment support only available if you're in receipt of universal credit?
I suppose it depends what support exactly is meant by that. If you wish to make a claim for universal credit and you're self-employed, you can get the support that I was describing earlier. If you are self-employed and you don't claim universal credit, certainly the financial support we wouldn't give. And again, our role would be around signposting people to other places, you know, as you just described, Bruce, like yourself, perhaps to get some advice. So our self-employed specialist work coaches are there to support the people who are claiming universal credit.
Right, thank you. Lovely. I think that hopefully that clarifies that. And there's one final question here before I move over to Karen. So I understand that I'm not eligible for universal credit. I've been on New Style JSA, is that Job Seekers Allowance? But finish that next month. I'm in the process of setting myself up as self-employed alongside a casual employment role that has erratic hours. Is there any support available for me to get started?
Without being able to answer the specific question, because I don't know the specific circumstances, so I'm not sure as to the reason as to why you may be ineligible for universal credit. It may be to do with amounts of savings, because you get New Style JSA, Job Seekers Allowance, for a period of time, because it's income based, so it's based on national insurance credits that you paid. Universal credit isn't based on that; it's a means tested benefit. So that might be why you can't get universal credit. I would suggest, if that's just what you've been told by someone, you know, or you won't get it, then I would suggest looking on the universal credit website and making an application just to get that confirmed if you've not already done that. So in terms of your self-employment, though, I think that will depend going forward as to how much money it makes. There is a way you can claim universal credit if you are self-employed and doing other employment as well. You know, so you're a PAYE employee for some time and a self-employed for the other time. But I would suggest the best way to answer that question specifically would be to go on the universal credit website, put in your specific circumstances and see what support there is available.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much for that, Ian. I'm going to move over to Karen now. I give you a bit of a breather. So, Karen, I think you're going to tell us a bit more about swaps, which I can't remember what they stand for. So perhaps you can just start off by telling us that and how they might help small businesses.
Absolutely, I will indeed. If I could just follow on from the question around the New Style JSA customer. My advice there would be to have a conversation with their work coach. Even though they're not in receipt of universal credit, they will still have an allocated work coach. And where it gets really tricky is that everybody has very individual circumstances. So that's why it's very difficult to be able to give advice specific to an individual, where if they were to go and have a conversation with their work coach and ask those questions to understand exactly what is available for them, you know, anybody who's in receipt of either universal credit or any of the other benefit types, please do take advantage of the time that you get with your work coach. You can always request an interview with them, an appointment with them, just so that you can double check exactly what it is that's available and what you're entitled to. You know, that's one of the reasons that we're here, to make sure that people get the support that they need. So yeah, definitely. So SWAPs, yes, what does that stand for? It's Sector-Based Work Academy Programme, and they're brilliant. So what a swap is really, Ruth, is an opportunity for an employer to recruit via some training that we will put on. So we'll put on a bespoke package for an employer. We'll identify exactly what the job role is, talk them through, understand what that looks like, and identify where somebody might want some specific training delivered. We will do the training on behalf of the employer. Then there's an opportunity for the individuals taking part in the swaps to be able to do some work experience with that employer. And then at the end of it, we ask just for a guaranteed interview, so that everybody who's actually taken part in it, we give the opportunity for them to have the conversation with their employer, hopefully because of the fact that it's somebody that they will want to take on, because we will have done that matching service at the beginning of all of this. If it's not right for the individual or the employer, what it does is also provide people with really good interview experience. All of that is normally up to 6 weeks. And what I would say is, because I know a lot of your members are potentially sole traders or small businesses, don't let that put you off, because what we can do is we can actually run a swap with a cohort of employers. So employers in similar sectors with similar types of vacancies. So we can kind of pool that opportunity. So if you're only looking for one person, whilst we might want to run a swap with 10 people on, that's absolutely fine, as long as there's that commonality of the type of opportunity available at the end of it. And if I give an example that probably helps to make this a bit more real for people. So say, for example, somebody was running a cafe and they wanted to take on somebody working either back of house in the kitchen, or they wanted to take somebody on as a new waitress, front of house staff. What we can do is we could actually deliver that basic health and hygiene training. So what it does is it provides realistic training that will be required as part of that role, and it takes the pressure off the employer because of the fact that some of the basic elements have already been covered by us before they actually come in and start to do the job and have a go. So the way I like to think about a swap is it's a little bit of try before you buy almost. So there really are a great opportunity, and we've got some fantastic training providers who work with us to deliver whatever we need. Again, we do a lot in the construction industry, security, you name it, we can do it. We just need to there needs to be a job at the end of it, potentially, because what we're looking to do is to provide an opportunity for one of those individuals taking part. And that's it.
That sounds really great, actually. And to get people trained up before they actually start with you is it's a real bonus, particularly if you're running a very small team and don't maybe have that, that capacity to take time out. I'm talking about having very small teams, or maybe no team at all, and certainly no HR departments. And maybe not a lot of experience in recruiting people. If you've started your business and it's mainly been you, and then you've maybe just happened to take somebody on, but you haven't got that experience. What sort of things can you do at DWP to help people with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes back to some of the things I was saying earlier. Get in touch with our employer services line and talk to us about what it is, what your requirements are, because we can help you step by step through all of those processes. So, sometimes writing a job description is really difficult. You know exactly what it is that you want to say, but to put it into a way that will translate to be able to actually send out to people, we can help you with that. We can help you with all of that paperwork, setting everything up. Again, all of our employment services, as in services for employers, are completely bespoke to whatever it is that you need. It doesn't matter how large or small your organisation is, we can provide you with that support. We've got professional employer advisors who are there waiting literally just to hear from you if they haven't found you and made an approach to you in the first place, because of the fact that one of the things we encourage is for people to go out and to seek new opportunities. So please do. Any help that you need, if you don't even know where to start, give us a ring, drop us an email, and we'll be able to guide you through and help you with whatever you need to do, when you need to do it. And as we said earlier, provide you with the opportunity, the facilities to actually be able to do that interviewing. We might ask you to provide your own tea and biscuits, but certainly we can provide the office space to do that.
Great, thank you. And what if I'm maybe a bit more of an experienced recruiter and I've tended to use a recruitment agency or a recruitment company in the past? How would you say, your offer compares to that? Why should we use you rather than a recruitment company?
Well, we don't charge you anything. Is the very simple answer as far as that's concerned. We have access to all of the same vacancies. that a recruitment agency does. And certainly the way that a lot of recruitment agencies operate is that there is a continuation of an on-cost for an employer. Now, I'm not saying people shouldn't use recruitment agencies. What I am saying is that actually people should give us a chance as well, because of the fact that more often than not, our customers are looking for jobs just like people who are going through recruitment agencies. But for us, you won't have the on cost with regards to whatever commission a recruitment agency might be doing. And I think also there's that element of that social responsibility about giving somebody an opportunity who might otherwise not have had that opportunity. Ian's talked a lot about people with a health condition or a form of disability. You know, we're very keen on also supporting our older workers. You know, I'm one of those people, so I know that should I not be fortunate to be in this position, I would struggle to know where to go to for help. And you know, what I want to encourage is people to actually see us as that support service, not only for people making the claim for benefits, but also the employers, and making sure that we find the right people to fit those vacancies and give those people an opportunity and a chance. You know, we've got a lot of specialist work coaches that Ian's already referenced, certainly with regards to self-employment, who've got loads of really, really good knowledge, who can not only help you as the employer, but also that individual to get that support.
That's great, thank you. I think I was just been checking through the questions to make sure we've answered everything, and I'd encourage anyone, if they've got any last minute questions, to pop them in the Q&A so that I can see them. I think there's one last one question that was submitted when somebody booked that I just wanted to make sure we'd addressed, which was, and I might be going mad, maybe I have already asked this, but about the starting point. So if you're self-employed, when do you count that from? So if you're still employed, but you've started a business, when are you self-employed? Like, when does your universal credit, that sort of, you know, you've got to be earning a certain amount in a year, when does it go from? Does it go from when you'd maybe set up your business, or when you're fully working in that? Like, when do you count it from?
Ian's popped back up, so I guess he wants to come in with that answer. I'll let him go, Ruth.
I'm going to give a slightly frustrating, it will very much depend on individual circumstances answer, but in essence, we will look at it from the date that you make a claim to universal credit, and then make a decision as to when, you know, a self-employed work coach would make a decision as to when that business genuinely started trading. And then look at that. So if it started trading 6 months before, and you made the claim after 6 months, we'd look at that and consider whether or not that 6 months was a genuine trading period or not, and then make an assessment based on that. But it will be done on individual circumstances. So I think if there's anyone in that circumstance, again, my recommendation would be look on the Universal Credit website through gov.uk, put in your details, make your claim, and then you get an interview with a self-employed work coach. I suppose the worst we can say is, no, I'm sorry, we won't treat that as trading that previous 6 months, and we'll only give you this month on without having to look for other work.
Lovely. Okay, no, thank you very much for clarifying that. So before we draw things to a close, Karen and Ian, are there any points that you really wanted to make today that you haven't had a chance to make, or like what's your final message you'd like to leave people with, I guess?
Oh, sorry, Ruth. I just really wanted to give a shout out to the recruitment events that we deliver. We regularly have jobs fairs, recruitment events happening across the country. And most of the job centre areas have got their own Twitter accounts. It's normally linked with the geographical county. So we've got at JCP Wiltshire, for example. So what I would say to people is, if you are thinking about recruiting, that's a really good way of being able to attract interest in your vacancies, as well as actually uploading them through Find a Job. And again, that's one of the links that we'll share with you via gov.uk, so that people as an employer are able to identify what support is available. And you know, the only other thing I would say is, if in doubt, please ask. You know, we've got a team of specialists waiting to be able to help people either move through into work with all the different types of support and training, but also from an employer's perspective with regards to, we want to work with you. If it's something that you think we can help with, then please do get in touch, because we'll be more than happy to see what we can do and how we can help you, because ultimately you're helping us to help others. Thank you. You're on mute, Ruth.
Sorry about that. Rookie error there. Ian, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I was just going to say, this comes back to being in a tight labour market. I would encourage anyone who is struggling to recruit people to be open to doing things in different ways. So, you know, we on this call that we can see are of a certain age. So, you know, we probably remember things like O levels and stuff like that. And often still you see people saying, you know, need to have this many O levels or that, you know, this or that qualification. And I think, actually, in this labour market, it's worth asking yourself the question, do I really need that? Is that what I want from someone I recruit? Is there a different way of getting the right person without necessarily putting some of those restrictions on? And again, I would recommend, if you're in that situation, you want some advice, talk to our employer advisors, because they can give some advice about some quick ways of getting people selected that may still meet your needs, but don't necessarily have what may have been a traditional requirement.
Thank you for that. And I don't know what you're talking about, Ian. I think Karen and I are only 21. So, you know, speak for yourself, really. But no, I'd like to just say thank you so much, Karen and Ian, for your time and the useful information. I've certainly learned a lot today. And thank you to everybody who's joined us to listen in. Just to remind you that we have recorded it. So it's going to go on our on-demand page. And Beth, who's also on this call, will be emailing you once that's live to the recording, and then also all the links that Karen and Ian have been mentioning to find the information that you need. And Debbie, yes, I've picked up your question there, so I will definitely do that. And what else do I need to say? So I've told you about the recording. Oh, I just wanted to say, if you like our FSB events, we'd love a Trustpilot review, because obviously that's what makes other people tune into these free events and find out about them, or it helps with that anyway. So if you did have time to do that, then we'd be really grateful. Thank you. But I think we will draw things to a close now. And just thanks again to Karen and Ian, and hope you all have a really great rest of the day. Take care. Bye.
Bye.